For years, our fallout investigation has uncovered radioactive contamination.
I live in fear every day.
Cancer.
Every person I know in this area has dealt with cancer in some way or the other.
And death.
It's a horrible life.
From the beginning, we focused on this, the Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion Plant, or PORTS, a massive closed Cold War facility in Pike County that once enriched uranium for America's nuclear bombs. But tucked away in a corner of the Ports property is this, the on-site waste disposal facility, a 100-acre, $650 million low-level radioactive and hazardous waste landfill. It's massive, being built to bury contaminated debris, equipment, and soil, part of a multi-billion-dollar cleanup of this toxic site. The U.S. Department of Energy, or DOE, which oversees ports, insists when it's completed and capped in 2030, this cutting-edge landfill will seal the radioactive and toxic threat for up to 1,000 years. Others strongly disagree, including Gina Doyle, who protested it.
Did they listen to you?
No, they didn't.
And Piketon's mayor, Billy Spencer, who tried to stop it.
I think at some point, this will be an environmental disaster.
Even DOE's former Assistant Secretary of Environmental Management, Ann White, who oversaw the cleanup at Ports and other contaminated sites across the country, says Ports is simply the wrong place for a radioactive landfill.
Should that landfill have ever been built?
My opinion, no.
The reason White and others say that has everything to do with this. Water. Pike County, where Ports is located, receives an average rainfall of nearly 4 feet a year.
You're managing water all the time.
White, who arrived at DOE after the decision to build the landfill was already made, says the radioactive waste from Ports should have been sent to landfills out west, like this one near Salt Lake City, Utah, or this one in western Texas, where the rain falls at a fraction of what it does at Ports.
So you're saying they should have shipped it out west?
Absolutely.
All of it?
All of it. Putting a landfill east of the Mississippi in a wetter environment where the groundwater level is higher is demonstrably less safe than putting waste into a commercial landfill in an arid environment where the groundwater is very deep.
At the Ports landfill, the groundwater is much closer to the surface. If you lift a cross-section of the landfill, you'd see that groundwater underneath it. Just 3 miles away, an ancient river still flows underground. It's called the Taze Aquifer, and it runs from Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky to and through Ohio before cutting under Indiana and Illinois, providing water to countless homes and communities along the way. The worry is the radioactive and chemical waste from the landfill will eventually leach into this important aquifer.
Millions of people can be affected by this.
All it takes is a leak.
Yeah.
While DOE insists the aquifer is too far away and the landfill will be airtight, Piketon's mayor believes it's just a matter of time before the radiation and chemicals create a catastrophe.
Is this a ticking time bomb?
It always has been.
Certainly a recipe for trouble.
It could be, indeed.
While White steers clear of dire warnings, she agrees the landfill at Ports does pose a threat she says she would have stopped before it started.
Would you have killed this landfill idea?
Yeah. I would have demanded a much more rigorous evaluation and study of it.
Dwayne Pullman, Local 12 News.
Well, WKRC's Dwayne Pullman joins us for an in-depth discussion about that threat, that radioactive contamination that poses a threat to Ohio and even some surrounding areas. And Dwayne, I think really my first question is if the residents and even the mayor believe that it's just a, quote, matter of time before catastrophe hits, especially when we're talking about these radioactive and chemical wastes going into that aquifer. What plans are in place if that happens? I mean, does the DOE even have any kind of backup plan for that?
Well, the U.S. Department of Energy is absolutely insisting that they've highly engineered the landfill, that nothing will go wrong. But if you consider that they're meeting what they say they're meeting, a 1,000-year plan of safety, they're dealing with, on the radioactive side, a threat that is, millions of years of half-life. So it will be a threat, and it relies on their engineering and their constant monitoring. So in and of itself, they just inherited not just 1,000 years, but millions of years to make sure it doesn't hit the water supply.
Yeah, you mentioned it right there, right? A threat. I know that catastrophe was even a word that was used in your reporting. Talk to me, what does that look like if catastrophe were to hit? And you just mentioned some of that possible water contamination.
So the landfill will contain what they call low-level radioactive waste in addition to chemical waste. And some of that is, enriched uranium, the stuff that is used for bomb making, other elements that are associated with plutonium, because that was in the mix as well. Most of it is construction debris from tearing down the buildings around there, but they were contaminated. They said they cleaned them, but they're still contaminated with some of this stuff. And then you have things like trichloroethylene, and you have all kinds of other things, PCBs, that are involved in this. I was just told that they're cutting up equipment, trucks and other front-end loaders, you name it, that are too contaminated to be used. So it runs the mix here on all kinds of threats to the environment. That's why they're putting it in a landfill and they're trying to seal it in. The question is, will that be enough?
Yeah, no, you mentioned right there, will that be enough? And some of the things you just listed, I mean, that's scary stuff right there. And I know that you've been really working to dig and get some of these answers. What's next for your investigation? I mean, what questions do you still have?
So we have all kinds of questions. If you review the questions I ask and the answer from the U.S. Department of Energy, it almost always is just kind of a standard or stock answer. It doesn't, they don't answer the specific questions. So I wish they would, because I'd like a partner in this that actually explained what is the rationale for it. There is no public health threat. That's what they say about this. I've aired now in 4 years more than 30 different investigative reports on all kinds of threats coming from this. We don't get specific answers. We don't get a sit-down interview. I've had only one occasion to ask anybody from DOE any of the questions. The point is that it comes down to this. U.S. Department of Energy is saying, trust us. We know how to handle this. Yet we are seeing, just from the epidemiology side, that people in that area and beyond, the other areas that are near it, have these excessive premature deaths and cancer rates that can't be explained. No one knows why, but the obvious focus is on the plant itself. So there are a lot of things going on there. Where do I go next with this? Well, we do know where we're going next. We're going to the victims and their families. We're going to go very deep on that to show the overwhelming face of what we call fallout. The series that we've been doing investigative-wise, this is something that we don't want to walk away from. There is a moral imperative here that people are dying and there need to be some answers given. It's at the essence of giving a voice to those who don't have it right now, actually amplifying the voice. They certainly have a voice, but they're not being heard, and then trying to hold power to account. That is the essence of this story.
And like you said, there is a moral imperative here, right? These voices definitely need to be heard. And when you're talking about when they're saying, trust us, but yet they're giving you these generic answers. They're not answering you in the specific questions that you're asking. Just as a reporter, how is that making you feel, especially knowing that you're speaking with these victims?
Well, I'm frustrated by that because as a journalist, and you know this, Peyton, as a journalist, you always want to have all voices at the table. And we try to be fair and open. Maybe what is your argument, and explain it. Why do you think it is safe? Why do you think that your radiological assessment is so sound that it can't possibly be you? I really take issue in the fact that, as an investigative journalist for, a long time, I really seldom take someone with a statement that says everything's safe, no public health threat. Show me your data that says that. And I've looked through everything that I can look through, and it's based on a calculation of dosage that the U.S. Department of Energy is using, but certainly it doesn't go deep enough in explaining that what people there are facing. And there's no question that there are incredibly high numbers of cancers and deaths, and the only explanation that you can land on with some certainty is you have this major facility, that Cold War era facility that for decades enriched uranium. And that's where we want the answers. We'd like to partner with the government to get the explanation, but we just haven't gotten that.
Thank you so much, Dwayne, for that update and for joining us to speak about this crucial report. And you guys can find more details on his findings at WCHS-TV.com.